The Queen City is a great place to live, and while the pros definitely outweigh the cons, in my opinion, in this video we're going to talk about some of the reasons why you might not be able to handle this Midwest city. So let's get started. I'm Angela Evans with Cincinnati, Ohio Living, and whether you're looking to move in 9 days or 90 days, go ahead and use my contact information in the description box below. I would love to help you make a move here in Cincinnati. The Queen City is a great place to live, and while the positive aspects of living in Cincinnati, Ohio definitely outweigh the cons, I'm going to let you be the judge as we uncover some of the top reasons why people can't stand this Midwest city. First up, let's talk about the weather. Overall, the weather in Cincinnati, Ohio can be extremely unpredictable. Here in Cincinnati, we do experience all 4 seasons. So generally the colder months go from about November until March and sometimes even April. But you could have pockets of warmer weather, 60, 70 degrees, in the middle of February. You just really don't know. And, I remember a couple years ago, we started cutting grass in March. And that was the earliest that we had ever started cutting grass. So it's kind of unpredictable. You never know if spring has really arrived or not until you're in the middle of, blazing 90-degree summer days. Then spring has officially started and is already over. The warmer months of the year are going to be May or June through about August or September. And you can get temperatures in the 90s. With the big thing here about the Midwest and Cincinnati is that you do have generally higher levels of humidity, which can make that 90-degree weather feel even hotter. And depending on if that bothers you or not, it might make being outside a little bit unbearable. Not to mention, when you're dealing with those hot and humid summers, the mosquitoes and flies and gnats are generally at full force, which makes something like a screened-in porch a really coveted thing here in Cincinnati. There are times that you're going to experience some stronger storms like thunderstorms and tornado warnings. It doesn't happen really often that we experience tornadoes, but it does happen, and there's definitely been damage in the tri-state area in the last year from tornadoes. But overall, I would say living here my whole life, I have never personally witnessed firsthand destruction. Now, I think experiencing all 4 seasons is a perk of living in this area because you can have some really beautiful spring or fall days, especially in the fall when the leaves are changing color and everything is just still green and beautiful. And you have that nice cool breeze in the air. So there are a lot of positives to experiencing the 4 seasons, but if you're moving from somewhere that has a pretty consistent climate year round, you are not going to get that here in Cincinnati. While we do get snow in Cincinnati, generally we're not getting any huge blizzards or snowstorms like you might hear of in places like Colorado, where everything gets shut down and they literally have several feet of snow. The most I think I've ever seen here in my lifetime, at least in the main Cincinnati area, is probably about 12 to 18 inches. And I think that was when I was a kid. In more recent years, I haven't seen anything over a foot of snow. I grew up living back a long driveway and a steep driveway, and driving in the snow does not bother me, but there are some people here in Cincinnati that do not really know how to drive in the snow or do a very good job at it. So that's something to be aware of. All right, so next up, one of the other downsides to living in Cincinnati are the seasonal allergies. The allergy levels here, if you're allergic to like pollen, mold, ragweed, there are times that those allergens get really high and can be really bothersome to people with allergies and asthma. You have tree pollens, grass pollens, weed pollens. There's just kind of all kinds of pollens here in the Cincinnati area. And my husband actually suffered from pretty severe ragweed allergies most of his life. He takes allergy medicine pretty regularly, actually got allergy shots for a period of time because when he would cut the grass, it would get so bad that he'd be wheezing. According to livescience.com, Cincinnati luckily isn't in the top 50 worst cities to live in if you have environmental allergies, but it does still impact people here regularly. So that's just something to consider. Next up, the traffic. During peak hours, you can expect congestion on the roads, especially your main highways like I-75, I-71, and 275. Specifically, I-71 and I-75, they are kind of always undergoing some sort of construction or expansion, which just makes things a little bit worse, as you know. During the peak hours, which are 8 to 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening, that's when you're going to experience the most congestion on your highways and roads. One thing that Cincinnati has just, I feel like, started tinkering with are roundabouts, which are supposed to improve traffic flow. And I know for sure there's some in Blue Ash. There's a lot in Blue Ash. There's some located all over. Some people have strong feelings about roundabouts and don't like them, but they are supposed to improve traffic flow instead of like a stop sign or a traffic light. So I feel like Cincinnati's making a little bit of progress in that area. So while there is a bus system in Cincinnati, we are generally a car culture here, meaning that most people own their own cars, and that is how they commute to work and around the city for anything that they might be doing. So the Metro Public bus system is really located around downtown Cincinnati. And obviously, as you get into the actual downtown, there are several stops. But the further you get out away from the city and closer to that 275 loop, the less bus stops that they're going to be available. So depending on where you live in Cincinnati, you may not have a bus stop nearby, and driving a car or owning a car is going to be necessary for you to be able to get places. At one time, Cincinnati did start building a subway system, but that never came to fruition. So we are left with the Metro bus system and cars. Because we experience the 4 seasons, riding your bike to work or walking isn't always an option during those winter months, or even when there's, strong thunderstorms and things like that. Downtown Cincinnati actually did recently, in more recent years, put a lot of money towards a streetcar. When I go downtown, it's used more as kind of like a fun thing or convenience thing to ride from a restaurant in OTR down to the Banks, which is near the Ohio River and the Reds and Bengals Stadium. That's not really considered a primary mode of transportation in the city. It's kind of more connecting, the riverfront area to over the Rhine area. And that's where it runs, and it doesn't go anywhere else. So while Cincinnati has a lot of major sports teams, you might not be able to handle how good they are. If you're expecting your major professional sports teams in your city to be winning their divisions every year and come home with championships, you might be a little disappointed. We have 3 major sports teams here in Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Reds is our Major League Baseball team. They last won a World Series in 1990. The Cincinnati Bengals is our professional football team in the NFL, and they have never won a Super Bowl. However, I will add, a couple years ago, they did make it to the Super Bowl. They played out in LA, and my parents actually won tickets to go to that game. And they said it was just an amazing experience. So cool. But it is an extremely rare occurrence for Cincinnati to be in the Super Bowl. And FC Cincinnati is our professional soccer team. They are relatively new. FC Cincinnati did win the Supporters Shield, which is awarded to the team with the best record in the league. But like I said, professional soccer in Cincinnati is relatively new, but people have been really supportive of it. They have an amazing new stadium, and people just get really into supporting their professional soccer team. But All that to say, here in Cincinnati, people love their professional sports teams. No matter what the record is, you're always going to have your fair weather fans, but true Cincinnati Reds, Cincinnati Bengals, FC Cincinnati fans, they are not going anywhere. They will go to games, they will go to events down around the stadiums on game days. So there's just a lot of passionate sporting people here in Cincinnati, and those are some of the biggest ones. You do have some other teams like the Cincinnati Cyclones hockey team. Those are really fun games to go to. I consider that more of a entertainment show than a game. So we also in this area have Northern Kentucky University, the University of Cincinnati, Xavier University, just to name a couple of the big ones. And a lot of times they have really good sports teams in basketball or football. You know, University of Cincinnati and Xavier University usually have the Crosstown Showdown, which is a basketball game, kind of like the city rivalry. So that's a fun thing too. So something else unique to the Cincinnati area is we are a little weird about our chili. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know I tend to always pull out where the Skyline chili is located. But most people that didn't grow up on Cincinnati chili don't always love it. The good news is there's plenty of options for you to try, from Skyline Chili and Gold Star Chili, which are both, you know, chain restaurants, and there are several of those throughout the city. You also have places like Pleasant Ridge Chili and Price Hill Chili, Blue Ash Chili. You also have some smaller places like Blue Jay Restaurant in North Side that has some great chili. Camp Washington Chili, which is really close to the University of Cincinnati and not far from downtown. So there are a ton of chili options. Let me know which one you think is the best. And a little fun fact, the oldest continually operating Cincinnati chili company isn't actually located in Cincinnati. It's in Northern Kentucky. Since 1929, Dixie Chili and Deli has been operating over in Newport, Kentucky. You also have the Chili Hut in the Loveland, Madeira area, Chili Time, which is in St. Bernard, Empress Chili, which is actually in Alexandria, Kentucky. Interesting thing that I saw, they actually have a chili pizza. It's a crust topped with mustards, onion, chili, and cheese. So hopefully what we talked about today can help you determine if you can handle Cincinnati, Ohio living. As a lifelong Cincinnati native and resident, I think the pros well outweigh the cons, and I think that you will too. If you want to know all about Cincinnati, Ohio living, and of course, the amazing houses that Cincinnati has to offer, I'm posting new videos every single week about Cincinnati, Ohio living and the housing market. So make sure you hit subscribe and tap the bell for notifications. That way you never miss a video.